and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 193. Sharing is so much more than caring. We're spending the month of October thinking about the symbolism of harvesting and the associated activities. So far, we have gathered what we have grown, produced or made, and sorted through or sorted out what we have gathered. The most natural thing in the world for kind-hearted souls to do next is to share. So in this episode, I'm talking about how and what to share as introverts out of necessity and in service of our growth. Sharing is relatively easy, even for we introverts, if we think literally about produce that we've grown or made. It becomes more difficult, however, when we think about sharing our thoughts, our ideas, our concerns, our fears, and even who we really are. You see, amidst the myriad of personalities, an introvert who has decided that it's their time to flourish casts an intriguing silhouette. We know that introverts tend to spend a lot of time in their heads and looking inward. That, after all, is the original definition of an introvert, according to Carl Jung. Typically, we have a vast array of brilliant ideas, yet those ideas are frequently shrouded in layers of reservation, introspection, and even self-doubt. So we're faced with needing to navigate the paradox between the necessity to share and the intrinsic challenges it raises for us. As introverts who have chosen intentionally to flourish, we need to become familiar and even comfortable with this paradox, as sharing is both a pathway to opportunities and a journey laden with challenges. Let's spend some time exploring and unpacking these challenges. Introverts are often painted with a broad brush and often in none too flattering hues. We're typified as reserved, detached and lonely individuals. I say tosh. Yes, we are naturally introspective, and if you listened to my last episode about sorting, our introspection can be a source of profound ideas and innovations, sometimes overwhelmingly so. I've recently been through a period, actually, who am I kidding? I'm still knee-deep in a period of such insight, inspiration and industriousness that I found it difficult to turn my brain off. Idea after idea after idea, and rarely in what might be considered a linear pattern. You really wouldn't want to spend too long in my head. Now, I'm pretty sure that will have happened to you at least once in your life too, so I'd love to know how you deal with the overwhelm of ideas. Please drop me an email or a message to let me know. Anyway, it's at times like this, when my head won't turn off, that I naturally turn to my support network. I talked about this in my Gather episode and video because I'm very selective about what I share and who with. And I'm saying that as an open introvert who is more likely than most to share what I'm thinking and feeling generously and mostly unfiltered. The other 5 pure types of introverts and the gazillion blends, and if you don't know yours yet, do find out by taking my free questionnaire. The link will be in the show notes. So those types, like the classic, the dynamic and even connected introvert, are likely to be way more circumspect than I am. Here are some of the reasons why sharing can be challenging in general for introverts. Firstly, it drains our energy. We are all too aware of the cost of superficial social interaction, which can leave us feeling depleted and, in my case, like a wet dish rag. Engaging, discussing and sharing in traditional extrovert-favoured settings demands significant pre-charging so that we're ready for that energy investment. And of course, we need to know we have planned recharging time in order to recover and get back to our best self. Then there's the fear of judgment. Authentic sharing demands vulnerability, and often we have been punished in some way or another for being vulnerable in the past. Some of us will have been mocked, some criticised, and some verbally or in some cases physically attacked. This makes us far more cautious, wary of how we're sharing what with in case it is used against us. We have to feel psychologically safe, and yet there are too few individuals or organisations who are paying this more than lip service. I responded to quite a provocative post by Tim Clark on LinkedIn recently. I'm a big fan of his work around psychological safety. His opening statement read, "Employees who do not have a demonstrated track record of creating psychological safety should not be eligible for promotion to management." I wanted to cheer out loud, as so many problems in the workplace are caused by people who either don't know how to create psychological safety or are in some way intent on creating a fear culture, foolishly thinking it will stimulate productivity. Oh, how wrong they are. But this lack of safety and fear of judgment will often limit an introvert's willingness to put forward ideas or achievements. So we play small and can be perceived as not having an opinion. Next on my list of challenges around sharing is overshadowing. In bigger forums like team or client meetings, trainings and conferences, etc., we know how those with more extroverted personalities or those pretending, because that's what they think they need to do in order to fit in and get on, are likely to take centre stage. And when this happens, it can be hard for us to get our voice into the conversation amidst the cacophony of noise. One of the things we invariably cover in my coaching programs is how to use placeholders effectively in the moment and how to strategically create space. Next on the list, there's concerns over privacy. The preservation of personal and emotional space is so important for introverts. Most of the introverts I work with work hard to maintain their privacy, which is why they can find generic questions about what we did over the weekend or where we're going on holiday or tell me something about yourself that people don't already know, why we find those quite intrusive. Spoiler alert, there's a reason people don't already know that stuff about me. And being forced to share something isn't necessarily going to build connection or trust within a team, come to that. It's much more likely to decrease my engagement and harden the protective shell I construct around me, the one that says "keep out" in capital letters. We will share if necessary and only when we feel safe to do so, back to an earlier point about psychological safety. Finally, there's self-censoring. Many of us have experienced years or decades of being told to be something we're not, so we develop a real embedded belief that we are not enough. So our inner critic, mine's called Gladys, if you didn't already know, but that's a story for another time. So the inner critic can leap to the fore and whisper or shout in your ear, "You don't have anything interesting to add," or "That's a rubbish idea, are you asking for a kicking?" Or even, "Don't say anything, you'll only make a fool of yourself." Understanding your inner critic is vital if you're serious about flourishing, and it's why I have a process that people can follow. You see, I know from bitter experience that trying to silence or banish an inner critic really doesn't work. Now, having said all that, the reality is all of these concerns are genuine, and the good news is that they are not fixed. If you're ambitious and intent on flourishing, and why wouldn't you be, there are times when you'll face an unavoidable necessity to share. You see, the act of sharing stands as an undisputed pillar in career development, innovation, and interpersonal relationship building. So, what then when it is in our best interest to share? Here are a few introvert-friendly strategies that will help you as you create your own psychological safety, build your confidence, and find your true voice so that you can share appropriately. Number 1, consider using structured sharing. Assess in advance how safe you feel in each situation and then decide how much you're prepared to share. Implement systems that ensure equitable sharing opportunities for all. This serves to safeguard introverts from being overshadowed by their extroverted counterparts. I also make use of pre-frames to introduce my contribution. And take your time. We've all met the person who seems to have no filter and share way too much, way too quickly. Take it from me, one who has been burnt by trusting too readily. Being cautious is a great strategy. Number 2, leverage the realm of digital platforms. I've found it really useful to test my ideas out in groups where people don't really know me. I think this is because I find I mind less if their feedback is critical. However, this does mean that I have to develop my thick skin to keep the trolls at bay. I know now that they are intent on harming someone and they don't have my permission for that person to be me. Of course, I also voice my ideas with my invaluable support network because I know they know me so well and will be compassionately honest with me. That also counters the trolling. Number 3, if I must network, and we can all do it if we prepare effectively, I choose the smaller, more intimate networking events. I find these cozier, more focused events allow me to have more meaningful conversations, the ones I cherish. Those then tend to create deeper connections, built on something special that I want to nurture. Do remember that this is networking, not netlurking. So take the time to work out who you want to connect with and what you want the outcome to be. These are all things I help my clients with in our coaching programs. Once your work at the event is complete, leave. There are no prizes for being the last one to leave a networking event. Number 4 on the list is seek out supportive environments. Introverts tend to be good at noticing and picking up on the energy of a place or a group. And many introverts are also empaths, which means they can literally feel and take on the energy and emotions of other people. So, where you have the power and influence to do so, consciously create environments that emphasize non-judgmental and supportive sharing. I recommend that you share first, so you're a role model for those who regard you as a mentor. Because if you do this consistently, it will help others over their fear of sharing. Remember one of my favourite quotes by Alexander Den Haya: "When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower." We all have the ability to create that kind of environment wherever we go, if we so choose. We all have the ability to lead regardless of job title or position. We all have an opportunity to help someone feel safer. I see it as an obligation, but it's up to you whether you see it in that way too. Does it take energy and sass? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely. And I see it as an opportunity for me to demonstrate my business principles. After all, not everyone will remember what I said, but clients have told me that they remember how I helped them to feel in that moment and still feel to this day. Finally, number 5, create diverse ways of collaborating. Don't replicate the old handed-down ways if they don't work for you, because that's an indication that they probably won't work for others either. With many of us working remotely still, even part of the time, there are so many technological tools and techniques that mean we can have the thinking time that we need so that we can contribute when we feel safe to do so, and all from the safety of our own environment. Don't fall for the argument that you need to get back into the office in order to collaborate. Global teams have worked beautifully for decades and without all the tech that we have now. Find or create structures and processes that allow for independent work balanced with group interactions. In this way, everyone can share without facing the challenges of energy depletion, self-censoring, fear of judgment, or compromising their comfort. As you introduce these new ways, they can then become the norm for others to adopt. So what have we covered today? Well, how and why sharing can be challenging for introverts, a few introvert-friendly strategies, and some gentle nudges to get you sharing. Sharing in all its forms takes a generosity of spirit, a willingness to be vulnerable, and a degree of humility. As you share, whether it's ideas, emotions, or thoughts, you'll find others more willing to share too. And you also have to be open to receive. Treasure these moments because they are a marker that psychological safety is being developed, trust is being built, and emotional intelligence is on the rise. That's part of how sharing is more than caring. Introverts on their flourishing journeys undoubtedly have an immense amount to offer. Rethinking how and why we share unlocks our potential in remarkable ways. A world where every voice, irrespective of its volume or frequency, is heard and valued, cultivates a fertile ground for innovation, for development, and for collective progression. So, navigating the paradox of sharing that we face as introverts by crafting environments that respect and uplift our intrinsic characteristics is not just beneficial, but essential. Next week, we're looking at the final topic of our theme of harvest, and that is clearing. But for today, thank you for letting me share my thoughts with you. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.